Hi everyone, and welcome to my virtual presentation for the 2020 North Atlantic Right Whale Consortium annual meeting. My name is Nicole, and I'm a member of the Passive Acoustics group at the Northeast Fisheries Science Center. And today I'm going to be talking about listening for North Atlantic right whales in Nantucket shoals from 2015 to 2020. Since there was a right whale distribution shift around 2010, the water south and southeast of Nantucket seemed to be a critical habitat more frequented by right whales in recent years. We know this both from past aerial surveys as well as some passive acoustic monitoring. Also looking at the screenshot of the interactive right whale sightings map, you can see during the year 2019 there were many right whales sighted in these waters. This area is also bisected by one of the New York shipping channels and is both next to and in a proposed wind farm development area. So for these reasons, it's really important to have continuous monitoring in this region. And we can do that using passive acoustic monitoring. For this study, a series of bottom-mounted recorders were analyzed. The red circles on the map represent MARU recorders, which were part of a larger migratory corridor study, which was funded from 2015 to 2019. And then the two yellow triangles on the map represent sound trap recorders, which were deployed in Nantucket shoals in January 2020. The goal for these two recorders is to have some level of continuous passive acoustic monitoring in this important right whale habitat so we can better understand how much time they spend in this region. In particular, these data were really important for the period during which COVID-19 grounded aerial surveys in 2020. The data from these recorders were analyzed using a low frequency detection and classification system, which was developed by Mark Baumgartner at WHOI. This system creates a condition spectrogram, detects sound, and then creates what we call pitch tracks, which are the red lines through the right whale upcalls on the spectrogram. It then classifies these pitch tracks based on a pre-programmed call library, and we browse the detections to determine which ones were true. We classified right whales as acoustically present if there were at least 3 true detections in a day. Now moving on to some results. Here we can look at right whale monthly acoustic presence at each recording site. I will cycle through the months starting in December. The larger the orange circle you see, the more right whales were acoustically present during that month at that site. And if you see a small white circle, right whales were not acoustically present at that site for that month. So starting in the winter months, we can see right whale acoustic presence is pretty high at almost all the recorders along the shelf. But then as we get further into the spring and beginning of summer months, right whale acoustic presence decreases. The Nantucket shoals sound traps were analyzed up to mid-July, but moving forward, just looking at the MARU recorders, we can see acoustic presence remains low in August and September, and then begins to increase again around October and November. We can also look at this data broken up by both year and site. This figure shows right whale acoustic presence from January to December on the x-axis. The figure is also broken up by year, with the bottom panel starting in 2015, and the top panel being the most recent data in 2020. Each panel is then broken up by site, with the site numbers indicated on the right corresponding to the site numbers on the map. Within each panel, the sites on the top are the sites closest to shore for that deployment, spanning down to the bottom of the panel to sites further offshore. The gray spaces indicate sites with no data available for that year. So we can see that between years, there's similar trends and that right whale acoustic presence is highest in winter and spring months, and then begins to decrease in later spring and early summer months. And then for the 2 years that we had recorders out during the summer and early fall months, right whale acoustic presence is at its lowest, but then it begins to increase again in the later fall and early winter months. Looking specifically at the 2020 sound trap data, we can see there was slightly more right whale acoustic presence in Site 2 than Site 1. And this panel just highlights all the data we were able to collect and what we were able to learn about how right whales were utilizing this habitat during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the goal for these recorders is that they should be out for several more years continuously recording. And with that, I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who helped make this project possible, especially the researchers, captains, and crew that did the turnarounds in the last couple of months that were a little bit trickier than normal. And I look forward to hearing any questions you may have at the consortium meeting.